Friends, in this video, let us see about the brachial plexus. So, brachial plexus arises from the anterior rami, okay, anterior rami with the roots of C5 to T1, okay. So, I'm mentioning the nerve roots C5 to T1. It is from C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1, okay. These are all the nerve roots where the brachial plexus got arises. So now how to remember this brachial plexus easily? So I will giving some easy trick to remember it. Okay. First of all, remember like this. Okay. From C5 and C7, C6, it will give one branch or it is known as trunk. Okay. Particularly it is known as trunk. Okay. So the roots join to form trunks. Okay. So, and then C7 and C8 combine to form one trunk. And T1 itself gives a single trunk. So, I am going to name it as this is upper trunk. Okay. This is middle trunk. And this is lower trunk. Okay. There are three trunks in which it is from the roots. Okay. Now, the now this trunk gives two branches. Okay. It is nothing but okay. This is nothing but divisions. So each trunk gives two divisions. One is anterior division and posterior division. Okay. In every trunk, it gives anterior and posterior divisions. Okay. This is also anterior division and posterior division. Now, so this divisions together joins to form cords. Okay. Cords. So, so to remember this, there is a trick. So anterior division of the upper trunk and anterior division of the middle trunk combines to form lateral cord. Okay. And the anterior division of the lower trunk forms the medial cord. And all the posterior divisions of upper trunk, middle trunk, and the lower trunk joins to form the posterior cord. Okay. Once again, the anterior division of the okay, the anterior division of the upper trunk and anterior division of the middle trunk forms the lateral cord, and the anterior division of the lower trunk forms the medial cord, and the posterior division of the upper trunk and posterior division of the middle trunk and the posterior division of the lower trunk forms the posterior cord. Okay, these cords will now again gives some branches. Okay, some branches. So let us see the branches one by one. So okay, so the lateral cord gives three branches, and the medial cord gives five branches, and the posterior cord gives five branches. Okay, so to remember this, there's an easy technique. Okay, so to remember this, I am going to give the trick as LML for lateral cord. So L, and this is also M. Next, for medial cord, 4M and U is the trick. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and U will be the trick for remembering the medial cord. Okay, M and M. Now, for the posterior cord, by ending it as U, right? So, this is also starting from U, like ulnar. Okay, the trick will be ulnar. Okay, for here, it is LML. And for medial cord, it is 4M and U. And for the posterior cord, it is ulnar. First L is lateral pectoral nerve. Okay, this is for N. I'm mentioning it as nerve. Okay, wherever I write N, it is nothing but nerve. Okay, representing a nerve. So this first L is nothing but lateral pectoral nerve. Okay, this 4M U and ulnar. Okay, okay. Now this M is nothing but musculocutaneous nerve. Musculo cutaneous nerve. And this L represents the lateral root of median nerve. Okay, median nerve. Now, this M represent medial pectoral nerve as usual, like lateral pectoral nerve. Okay, and this M represents the medial root of lateral nerve. Lateral nerve. That is lateral root of median nerve. This is medial root of lateral nerve. Okay. Next, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm will be one branch coming from the medial cord, and medial cutaneous nerve of arm, and this is ulnar nerve. Okay. Now this first U represents the upper subscapular nerve. Okay, and this L represents the lower subscapular nerve. Okay, and this N represents the nerve to latissimus dorsi. Okay, and this A represents the axillary nerve. Okay, and this R represents the radial nerve. So once again, okay, so this L represents the lateral pectoral nerve, M represents the musculocutaneous nerve. Again, L represents the lateral root of median nerve, and M represents the medial pectoral nerve, and again M represents the root of medial root of lateral nerve, and medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, and ulnar nerve, and upper subscapular nerve, lower subscapular nerve, nerve to latissimus dorsi, axillary nerve, and radial nerve. There are also some nerves which arises from directly from the roots. So let us see one by one. So from C5, one nerve arises. It names as dorsal scapular nerve. Okay, its nerve root is only C5, and another nerve which arises directly from the root is from C5, C6, and C7, which is nothing but long thoracic nerve. Okay, long thoracic nerve. Nerve root is C5, C6, and C7. Its another name is nerve to serratus anterior. Long thoracic nerve is also called as nerve to serratus anterior. Okay, and two nerve roots arises from the upper trunk. One is suprascapular nerve, suprascapular nerve, and another nerve which arises from the upper trunk is nerve to subclavius. Okay, nerve to subclavius. And an important point which is present here. Okay, one important point which is present here is Erb's point. Okay, this plays a important point as in this position. Okay, it is the point where six nerves connect with each other. Okay, the nerves are the nerves are C5, C6, and the upper trunk nerves like suprascapular nerve and nerve to subclavius and anterior division and posterior division nerve. So there are in this Erb's point there are six nerve. So now I will going to say a trick to remember the roots of the branches arising from the lateral cord. So it is C5, C6, and C7. So as we know that the brachial plexus arises from the C5 to T1 nerve root, right? So first for lateral pectoral nerve from the lateral cord arises from the C5, C6, C7. As usual, this is also same C5, C6, C7, and this is also same C5, C6, C7. Okay. Now to remember the medial cord, okay, I will write the trick here. So C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. So I have written C5 to C7 from the lateral cord, right? So now for the medial cord, I'm going to write the remaining two. So it is C8 and T1. This is one also C8 and T1. This one also C8 and T1. This one to C8 and T1. But only for the ulnar now, I am going to mention another one C7, C8, and T1. Okay, nothing as usual. The C8 and T1 remains the same, but here I am going to mention extra one now, which is nothing but C7. Okay, so C7, C8, and T1. Okay, now to remember the posterior cord branches, I am going to mention this C5 and C6. Okay, this C5 and C6. So C5 and C6. This one also C5 and C6. This one too C5 and C6. So now there are two exceptions here. The nerve to latissimus dorsi and the radial nerve. The radial nerve is supplied by C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. Supplied by all the nerves as the brachial plexus supplied, right? So C5 to T1. But the nerve to latissimus dorsi is supplied by C6, C7, C8. The only change here is to remember the C6, C7, C8, which is supplying the nerve to latissimus dorsi branch of the posterior cord. Okay, so this is the trick to remember the nerve root of the branches from arising from the cords. Okay, thank you for watching.